Beautifully, beautifully done. So we are in a series called Being Big for God. Say that with me. Being Big for God. It's a series that was actually inspired by a song called Be Big for God, written by a New Thought singer-songwriter, Cerise Patron. I want to share with you some of the lyrics of that song. We used it as our opening song last Sunday. But in case you weren't here, I want to share with you some of the themes of the song. In it, Cerise suggests that we go big for God by looking at areas and times and places we can speak out for love. To speak out for love. To shine our lights brightly. To live loud without regrets. I like that. To live loud without regrets. To break free of fear and doubt. To say yes to our good. To say yes to our good. To live in harmony. To be a catalyst for change. And so it's all about this idea that each and every one of us can be big for God, big for Spirit, bigger than we've ever thought we could be before. You know, our New Thought teachings inspire us and instruct us and invite us and infuse us with all we need to do just that, to live a big, grand, magnificent life of our own uniqueness, Last week, my message was all about how we are being invited by Spirit, by God, to stretch and to grow. And how sometimes that invitation actually lies disguised beneath divine discontent. I like that phrase, divine discontent. Do you like that phrase, divine discontent? I like it because it's so much better than just saying discontent. Divine discontent puts a whole other feel to it. But actually, in a way, it's very apt. It's very true, because beneath our discontent, we will often find the nudging of our soul saying, there's something more for you. Don't stay here. And here isn't necessarily a place, but a state of consciousness. Don't stay here. There's something more. Stretch, grow, trust yourself. And so we're being invited by life to do just that. And our challenge is to pay attention to that invitation, not to ignore it, not to push it away. Well, last Sunday, I was deeply inspired when one of our members was so moved by the message that he wrote me an email that I want to share with you. He felt an inner nudge. He felt an invitation. And when he wrote this email to me, I was so taken by it that I asked for permission to read it. And when I read it to you, you might appreciate how he had to stretch to say yes for me to read this. Now, I'm not going to share his name, but this is what he wrote. Dear Wendy, we'll call him Tom. This is Tom, one of your Sunday 9 a.m. Unity attendees. Your talk last Sunday, Big for God, was challenging for me in a positive way. Being a quiet introvert, it's very difficult for me to get out of my isolated comfort zone. For a long time, I resigned myself to accepting that the urge to accomplish things and the desire to live life more fully and grow are what other people experience, but not me, due to personality, stage of life, etc. Last Sunday, you challenged us to notice any itchy feelings. I didn't recall using the word itchy, but that's okay. He got the point. Last Sunday, you challenged us to notice any itchy feelings we may sometimes have about things we'd like to do, and to pay extra attention if the itch comes back and we try to ignore it, and to pay serious attention if it's about something that frightens us, something we cannot believe ourselves capable of doing. He was really paying attention. At first, I mentally poo-pooed the idea. I thought to myself, that's for others to ponder. I never get that kind of itching feeling because I know my limits, and long ago I learned to accept it's beyond me to grow in that way. But then it dawned on me that travel with a purpose has been one such itch for me. The idea intrigued me from the start, but I've been too scared to seriously consider it or talk about it with anyone. And I pretty much gave up the idea because I figured it was too late. And then wouldn't you know it, near the end of last Sunday's service, you casually mentioned there are still a couple of slots available, which there are, on the upcoming trip to Peru, and that time is running out. The itch is back. Thus, I'm contacting you first of all to let you know I appreciate your challenge, and I'm glad to say I noticed an itch. I'll continue to pay attention. Maybe I'll notice some other itches too. I'm also writing to ask if there's still time remaining to submit an application for the upcoming trip. If so, who should I contact and how much time remains to turn in the completed application and associated payments? Even if there's still time, I fully understand I may not be a suitable applicant for any number of reasons, and if deemed not suitable, I'll be perfectly okay with that. For me, it's an achievement simply to open myself up for consideration. He says, thank you, kindest regards, Tom. P.S. After I'd written this email, but before I hit send, a member of the Unity community forwarded a flyer to me about the extended deadline for the application and who to contact. So now I really know. I was inspired. I was touched by his transparency, by his honesty, his authenticity, his vulnerability. He didn't have to share all of those things. He could have simply said, I'm going to apply for the trip. But he shared all that he shared. And I thought, wow, to be able to acknowledge your fear, to be able to acknowledge that you have accepted certain limits about yourself, but then to also be aware that there's something that keeps stirring, there's something that keeps inviting you into something bigger is powerful. And I believe that that's part and parcel of what happens when we are actively engaged in our spiritual life. We begin to become aware of that divine discontent. We begin to pay attention to those invitations, those synchronicities, and we begin to act upon them. Our teachings in Unity and in the science of the mind do just that. They instruct us. They give us the tools to be able to step out and answer that call and be more and do more. I want to share with you a piece from Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, in his book Talks on Truth. He writes, the creative law makes man responsible for the bringing forth of the divine perfection. The creative law makes man responsible for the bringing forth of the divine perfection. God finished his work in the ideal, meaning in the idea, in the potentiality, and we are to make it manifest. What is Charles saying? Charles is talking about the inherent blueprint, the inherent divinity, the inherent potentiality, the perfect idea, if you will, of man, of woman, inherent in each and every one of us. But it is up to us to give it form, to express it, to make it manifest. And we each do it in our own unique ways. And that's a really good thing. That's a really good thing. So today I want to share with you a 5-step process that will help us to be big for God. And I've made it as an acronym. I'm going to tell you what the 5 steps are. I'll have us do some back and forth affirming together, and then I'll go a little deeper into each of those 5 steps. So the first step is this: become aware of the bigger reality. Become aware of the bigger reality. Say that with me. Become aware of the bigger reality. Number 2, embody the belief in universal principle. Embody the belief in universal principle. Say that with me. Embody the belief in universal principle. And again, embody the belief in universal principle. Key word there is embody. Embody. Step 3, be bold in speaking your word. Say that with me. Be bold in speaking your word. Step 4, imagine yourself being big for God. Say that with me. Imagine yourself being big for God. And G, go forth in every practical way you can. Go forth in every practical way you can. Say that with me. Go forth in every practical way you can. Now, have you noticed that out of those 5 steps, the first 4 really primarily deal with the inner life? They deal with thinking, they deal with feeling, they deal with imagination, with embodiment, with believing, with faith, with vision. It's just the last one that's really about a physical step, something behavioral, something concrete. And so much of bringing forth good in our lives is just that. It begins and is grounded in the inner life, in thinking, in feeling, in visualizing, in believing, in speaking the spoken word, and then going forth and doing whatever work is involved in manifesting. So back to number 1, become aware of the bigger reality. Become aware of the bigger reality. One of my favorite scripture verses actually comes from 1 Corinthians, and it is this: eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man what God has prepared for those who love him. Eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor has entered into the heart of man what God has prepared for those who love him. That verse is not exclusive to men. It is descriptive of humanity. And it is not dependent upon a particular religious expression or belief. God is not, as we know, an anthropomorphic being in the sky. God is an energy, a potential, the life force itself that lives and moves and has expression in each and every one of us. Eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor entered into the heart of man or woman what God, what spirit, what life has prepared for those who love. And so I ask you, do you not know that you are more capable than you have ever dared believe before? I know that about you. The truth is, sometimes it's easier for me to know that about you than it is to know that about me. And I bet you might have that challenge as well. That's in part why we need each other, to reinforce, to lift each other up, to really get that you are so much more than what you have ever thought you were before. Tom got part of that beneath the fear and the divine discontent when he kept noticing that this feeling about, I want to go to Peru, required that he break out of or beyond his own self-identified limitations. They're not real limitations, but they felt real to him because his thought structure held them in place. But beneath that thought structure was something else, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, saying, wait a minute, there is something more in you and about you. Pay attention to that. Second, embody the belief in universal principle. Embody the belief in universal principle. Say that with me. Embody the belief in universal principle. There are spiritual principles at work all around us. Principles that are undeniable, that always work. There is a direct relationship between what we consistently think and feel and what we experience or draw to us or keep in our lives. There is a direct link. Consciousness is formative. Energy goes where our attention flows. We've got to understand that and not just dabble around the edges of it. The universal principles are responsive. They will work if we work them. They will work if we work them. So we start paying closer attention. And that leads us into the next. Step 3 is to be bold in speaking our word. Say that with me. Be bold in speaking our word. A lot of times we pay no attention to our words. No attention. What would happen if we started to pay much more careful attention to the words that we speak? The words that we speak are saying something about what it is we are thinking is possible for us right now. Have you noticed how much negative talk there is all around? How much fear talk there is all around? How much lack talk there is all around? Have you noticed that sometimes you are participating in it too? Remember, the only way that we can change something is to first become aware of it. Paying attention to what are we saying and how are we saying it and how deeply do we believe in the possibility of the good that we want. Jesus did not say to Lazarus, Lazarus, if you're kind of in the mood, would you get up and walk? He said, get up and walk. When he was challenged to feed the multitudes and the disciples brought to him just a few loaves and a few fish, he didn't say, God, well, this is really a predicament. How are we going to get out of this? I think maybe you should help me out here. What am I supposed to do? No. We're told he looked heavenward, which means mystically he remembered his source. He looked within. He gave thanks for what he had. It was an act of speaking the word, if you will. He gave thanks for what he did have. He used what he had. And it was enough. It was enough. Speak your word with conviction, with truth. What is it that you're wanting to bring forth in your life? Greater joy, greater love, greater peace, greater abundance, greater health. Emma Curtis Hopkins, who is considered to be a metaphysical teacher's teacher because she taught people such as the Fillmores and Mary Baker Eddy and others who went on to found their own new thought movements and teachings. She was born, I think it was in 1849, thereabouts. She was a deeply mystical spiritual metaphysician who believed strongly in the power of the word and used it carefully. One of her favorite affirmations is one that I want to share with you here. It is this: this too is good. This too is God. This too is for me, and I demand a blessing. Thought that last part would get you. This too is good. This too is for me. This too is God, and I demand a blessing. Imagine if we greeted every difficulty in our life, every upset in our life, with those words and that energy. Would we greet it differently? Would we? Yes, we would. This too is good. This too is God. This too is for me, and I demand to see a blessing in it. Say it with me. This too is good. This too is God. This too is for me, and I demand a blessing in it. I was looking up at my ceiling during the rain in the new house we moved into. Drip. 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 This too is good. This too is God. This too is for me. And I demand a blessing. You might say, what kind of blessing could come out of that? Well, many, actually. Now we know where it is. Right? So we can fix it. It's only in one spot in a pretty large house. That's a blessing. That's a blessing. This too is good. This too is God. This too is for me, and I demand a blessing. The fourth, imagine yourself being big for God. Can you do that? Can you imagine yourself being big for God? I forget where in the New Testament this verse comes in, but I like this verse too. The verse that says, do everything as if you were doing it for God. Wow. Wash your dishes as if you're doing it for God. Drive as if you're... Okay, bing, that's one, right? Balance your checkbook as if you're doing it for God. Do it all as if you're doing it for God. Imagine yourself being big for God. Sometimes, as soon as we hold a thought that is big, like imagine yourself being big for God, its opposite comes in. Have you noticed that? It's like when you pray to be more patient, you often will get many more opportunities in which you need to practice it so you can become more patient. So here's a piece from Rhonda Byrne's book, The Secret Scrolls, and it's about how to handle this when on one hand we're trying to imagine ourselves being big for God, speaking our word boldly and creating more of the life we want, but there's that little voice inside of self-doubt or fear or just the negative thoughts that often run through our minds. She writes, how do I stop my thoughts of being small is a question that is often asked. If you've ever asked this question, then you'll feel relief in knowing the answer because the answer is actually very simple. How do you stop negative thoughts? You plant good thoughts. When you try to stop negative thoughts, you're focusing on what you don't want, negative thoughts, and you will attract an abundance of them. They can never disappear if you're focused on them. The stop part is irrelevant. The negative thoughts have become your focus. It doesn't matter if you're trying to stop negative thoughts or control them or push them away. The result is the same. Your focus is on negative thoughts. And by the law of attraction, you're inviting more of them to you. The truth is always simple, and it's always easy. To stop negative thoughts, just plant good thoughts deliberately. You plant good thoughts by making it a daily practice to appreciate all things in your life. Appreciate your health, your car, your home, your family, your job, your friends, your surroundings, your meals, your pets, the magnificent beauty of the day, the raindrops. Compliment, praise, and give thanks to all things. Every time you say thank you, it is a good thought. As you plant more and more good thoughts, the negative thoughts will be wiped out. Why? Because your focus is on good thoughts. And what you focus on, you attract. So don't give any attention to negative thoughts. Don't worry about them. If they come, make light of them. Shrug them off. And let them be your reminder to deliberately think more good thoughts now. Let them be your reminder to deliberately think more good thoughts now. And then the last step, G, go forth and act in every practical way you can. Go forth and act in every practical way you can. Say that with me. Go forth and act in every practical way you can. Our member Tom did exactly that, didn't he? He noticed and paid attention to that nudge, that itch. And his next practical step was what? To say, I'm interested. Can I apply? And to take that step. Does he know at this point whether he's been accepted or not? No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't been accepted. No, he doesn't know. We don't know yet because we haven't even looked at the application. But he's taken that step. He didn't require a guarantee of being told yes. He was willing to do what? Take the first step. You see, as soon as we are willing to pay attention and take the first practical step, we will have earned the right for at least the next step to be made known to us. But if we refuse to take that first step, why in the world should the universe honor us with anything more? There really is no reason. There really is no reason. So go forth and act in every practical way you can. Our teachings can be misused. I suppose any spiritual teaching can be misused, for certain. Our teachings sometimes are misused to think that all that we need to do is think and visualize and feel and imagine, and then everything's going to just happen. But that's not the way it works. That's not the way it works. We need both activities. We need the inner work. We need the thought structure. We need the practice. We need the spoken word, visualizing and imagining and all the things we've talked about. But it cannot end there. It ends with the steps that we take to live out the guidance that we have received. Namaste.